night haze, chasing shadows in the darkest maze. Footsteps echo in the empty hall, mysteries waiting on our call. Bigfoot stomping through the pines, aliens sending secret signs. EVPs in the dead of night, ghosts dancing in the pale moonlight. Paranormal 411, we bring it to you. Truth behind the veil, gotta pursue you.
All right.
All right.
Woo!
Welcome, everybody.
Got a good show tonight.
Oh, look here.
During this broadcast, you can support Paranormal by sending stars, digital gift that helps us bring you content.
All right. We got that hooked up, didn't we?
Whoop, whoop.
Not saying you have to, but
That did that automatically?
yes, it did.
Well, that's very strange. Very, very
So tonight we have some listener encounter stories to tell.
Yes. This is something what we always wanted to do with Thursday show anyway. It's taken us a while of getting enough people to actually give us their stories, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's thankful, we think. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're thankful for the people who send us, who believe in us enough that we won't tell their names and stuff like that, like they ask, and we just tell their stories. No judgments here.
So
We've heard it all.
yeah. Heard it all.
All. There's not much we haven't heard. How's that?
So
no
I hope
judgments.
everybody's doing okay tonight. It's raining.
Yeah, it's still in our rainy season.
Gonna rain tomorrow.
Rain.
Gonna rain.
Rain.
Maybe not Saturday.
Yeah.
Probably will though. I'm off.
Yeah.
So, you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
So our first story comes out of the Appalachian foothills, on the North Carolina side. Now, we're just going to say first names.
Yes.
So, and I'm going to read you what she wrote. She said, "Hi guys, my name is Sarah, and this happened to me about 5 years ago when I was visiting my grandparents. So it's pretty isolated out there." And she was in the foothills of the Appalachians, North Carolina. There's deep woods, no cell service, the works. And her grandparents always told them stories about critters in the woods.
Ooh.
But, she never really elaborated. So one evening I was out walking my grandparents' dog, Buster. And just before dusk, now he's a big, brave golden retriever.
Brave.
Remember that word.
Remember that word, brave.
Not easily spooked. So we were,
that too.
Yeah. We were on a narrow deer trail about a mile from the cabin or the house when Buster suddenly froze. Every hair on his back stood up, and he let out this low guttural growl that I'd never heard from him before. He was staring intensely into a thick patch of rhododendrons.
Yes. You know what's funny about that? That a lot of people that talk about Bigfoot sightings, it's always in a patch of rhododendrons.
Or a thicket. No. I thought it was rhododendrons.
Rhododendron. So you say dendron.
Rhododendron.
There you go.
Rhododendron.
That's it. Yep.
Is that what I said?
Yeah. Nope. But it is what you said that time.
So it wasn't an animal I recognized. It was tall, maybe 7 feet tall, incredibly slender, and almost skeletal. Well, that's weird.
That is weird.
It's like Slender Man.
You know, I was thinking the same thing when you just said that.
Yeah. And perfectly black, like a hole in the twilight zone, you know.
What's funner about that is that's what people say about when they see shadow people.
Yeah.
Is that it's darker than the dark itself.
That's exactly what I thought about. It was a shadow person.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to have any features, just a dark silhouette against the trees. It wasn't moving, just standing there watching us. It felt like it was predatory, not like a bear or a coyote, but something ancient and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
So Buster suddenly yanked free of his leash and bolted back towards the cabin, whimpering and crying and screaming. And I stood,
this brave dog.
I stood there frozen for a moment too long, feeling like an icy dread was crawling up my spine. Then the shadow shifted. It wasn't a walk or a run. It was more like just it flowed or rippled, and it went deep into the woods. It disappeared as silently as it appeared. She says, I don't think I've ever run so fast in my life. I didn't stop until I ran through the house door, grasping. My grandparents were confused, but when I told them, my grandma just got this grim look on her face and said, some things are better left alone in the woods. I wouldn't want to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
So it says I never went for another walk by myself after that, and I still get chills thinking about that shapeless thing and she asked what we think it was. I think it was
it seems like a shadow person.
A shadow person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Shadow person for sure.
Shadow.
Well, I can't say for sure, but the way that what it was doing, shadow people, that's what they do. They just stay in the shadows. They just look.
Yeah.
They're observers. Not much do they interfere or do other things. We've had stories that they do, but it's rare.
Yeah, some stories are like when you're asleep and they're like on your chest or something like that.
Yeah. Well, then you have Mike Ricksecker.
Yeah, he folded his hands up.
His arms over like this right here. So, thinking he thought that maybe he thought he was dead or something.
Yeah.
So, but most of the time, shadow people stay in a corner and just look.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Hey.
Don't see me, but I'm over here.
So we want to thank you, Sarah, for that story.
That was a great story.
Yeah,
it really was. When we was reading them last night, when we was putting this show together, there's a few of these stories that are like pretty dang good.
Yeah.
So this next one, they lived in rural Eastern Oregon.
Rural.
Yep. And this happened to his wife, and Michael is the one that wrote to us. So it says, hey, gentlemen, my name is Michael. I live out in rural Eastern Oregon. This happened to my wife, Emily, and me about 10 years ago, but it still haunts us. We have a small farm, pretty isolated, and on clear nights, the stars are just unbelievable. Now, it was a late summer night. It was incredibly dark. It was about 2 a.m. We were both asleep when our dogs, which are usually quiet at nighttime, started absolutely losing their minds. They were barking, howling, scratching at the back door. So I got up, figuring maybe it's a coyote or something, and went out to look out the window. That's when I saw it. It was not a coyote, but it was hovering silently over our back pasture.
Hovering.
Yeah. maybe about 50 feet off the ground, was a massive triangular craft. It was perfectly black. It seemed to absorb all the light with no visible seams or rivets.
Hmm.
Now, at each corner, there was a single dim, pulsating red light. It made no sound, which was probably one of the most unnerving parts. So I shook my wife Emily awake, pointing. She was just stunned. She watched it for what felt like an eternity, maybe 10 minutes or so. Now, it didn't move an inch, just sat there, dominating the sky. Then one of the red lights on a corner brightened slightly, and a thin beam of pure white light shot down to the ground.
Hmm.
It hit a spot in our pasture where our horses usually graze. Now, the horses, which had been agitated before, were now completely still, almost frozen. Then I swear Emily and I both felt this strange pressure in our heads, like a silent, intrusive thought, not a voice, but a feeling of being observed, scrutinized in a way that felt alien, cold. It wasn't malicious, just indifferent, like we were ants under a microscope. Now, suddenly the light beam retracted, the red lights dimmed, and the entire craft, silent, just slid sideways. It didn't accelerate or fly off. It just simply moved horizontally across the sky, maintaining the same altitude until it was out of sight behind some distant trees. It was so smooth and effortless, it defied anything I understand about physics. The dogs immediately stopped barking, fell silent, and went back to their beds as if nothing had happened. Emily and I just stood there staring at the empty sky. Now, we've never spoken about it to anyone until now, because who would really believe us? We get that a lot, don't we? But we both saw it, and we both felt that cold, silent watch. That's kind of creepy.
That is.
I mean, to see a UFO, because obviously that's what it was, right? To see a UFO in your back pasture, see it illuminate onto the ground, and then to feel like something was intruding into your mind when that started happening.
Yeah.
To me, I'd like to ask, do you have missing time?
Yeah, it would be.
Could you have been abducted? Maybe.
Maybe.
Now this next one's a pretty good one.
This is from David.
Yes, but not me.
So it says, "Greetings, Jason and David. My name is David, and this story comes from my childhood. Back in the early 90s, my family used to rent a cabin on a private lake in northern Minnesota. It wasn't a big
Minnesota?
It wasn't a big tourist lake, just a quiet lake surrounded by forest. And one summer night when I was about 12, my older brother Mark and I decided to go fishing off the dock, after dark. We had flashlights, and the air was still and humid, and the only sounds I could hear were the crickets and the occasional, splash of a fish. So he says we'd been out there for about an hour, not catching much, when we started hearing this strange sound coming from across the lake. It was like a rhythmic slapping, like something large hitting the water, but it was too heavy for maybe a beaver and too slow for a fish. It sounded deliberate, like something was moving through the water, slapping it purposefully. Then the sound got closer, and we started to hear a low, wet, gurgling noise. Ooh. We flicked off our flashlights, just listened, and the slapping and gurgling got louder. And then we heard a distinct thump on the shore, just right across from the dock.
Mm.
A moment later, something moved into the trees across the lake, and we couldn't see it clearly, but it was massive. And it was moving on two legs. It wasn't walking like a human. It was more like, it was more of a lumber, bent over with a heavy gait, and we could hear branches snapping as it moved through the underbrush.
Mm.
So what happened next gives me nightmares. There was a high-pitched, wet shriek echoed across the lake. Didn't sound like any animal, or like a coyote or a bear. It sounded like something in pain. And it sent a jolt of pure terror through me and my brother. So the sound was so full of agony, it felt like it was tearing, through the darkness of the night.
Mm.
Now, my brother was usually fearless. He grabbed my arm and whispered, "We're going inside now." So we scrambled off the dock, didn't even pick up our fishing rods, and ran back to the cabin. We slammed the door, shut it, locked it, and stood there and just listened. So the horrible shriek didn't repeat, but for the rest of the night, we heard a faint, persistent scratching sound on the wall of the cabin. It's playing with them. So it was like something was trying to find a way in. My parents woke up. They heard it too, and my dad went out with a flashlight, and he didn't find anything. So we left the next morning. We cut our vacation short, and my dad always said it was a bear, but I've heard bear noises, and it didn't sound like a bear. Whatever is in that lake, and then when it came up on the shore, it felt like it was, he says it felt deeply disturbed. I've never gone back to that lake.
Well, it sounds like his parents never went back to that lake either, because he was 12 at that time. So he's like, no, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, I think it might have been a Bigfoot.
Think so?
Minnesota Bigfoot.
Minnesota Bigfoot.
Bigfoot from Minnesota.
Hey, Minnesota.
So, hello everybody. We got a couple people watching. Michelle, I know, is one.
Yep.
She's watching on Facebook.
Yeah.
I wonder if my wife's watching.
Maybe.
She hadn't chimed in yet, so maybe she is, maybe she ain't. Never know.
So this next one is in West Tennessee.
Oh, Western Tennessee.
Yeah.
Bring it home.
So this one, everybody, is a little spooky.
Yeah.
A little.
I read this one too, and it's kind of scary.
It's a little spooky. So turn off the lights.
The party's over.
And really settle into this one, because this one is pretty spooky. So she says, hello. She says, my name is Clara. She's watching on her computer.
Hi, Christina. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Says, my name is Clara. This happened to my family when we moved to an old Victorian house in West Tennessee about 5 years ago. Now, the house was beautiful, built in the late 1800s, with a lot of character. We knew it was old, but we didn't know it was angry.
Most old houses like that are.
Could be. Sometimes they're angry at the new owners because they're not taking care of them.
Yeah.
So she says that things started pretty subtly. Doors would open and close on their own. They'd hear footsteps creaking on the stairs when no one was there. She says her youngest son, Liam, who was 6 at the time, would often talk about the lady in the long dress who watched him from the hallway.
Mm.
Now, we dismissed it as an active imagination. That's what a lot of people do. Then things started to escalate. Objects would be thrown. One night, a heavy ceramic vase flew off the mantelpiece and shattered against the wall, missing my husband's head by inches. We'd find strange, often disturbing messages written in condensation on bathroom mirrors or foggy windows, things like leave or get out.
Mm.
Get out.
Actually written on the mirror.
Yeah. Like when you take a hot shower,
Yeah.
written on the mirror. That would be pretty weird.
Yeah, that's horror flick.
The worst was what happened to my daughter, Emily. She was 14 and had her room on the 3rd floor. One evening, I heard her scream bloody murder, so I ran up the stairs to find her huddled in the corner of her room, sobbing. Her face was pale. She was pointing to her bed. Her comforter, which had been neatly made, was torn to shreds, and underneath it, pressed into the mattress, was a deep, scorched indentation shaped like a large, clawed hand.
Yeah.
She says it smelled faintly of ozone.
What does ozone smell like?
Oh, yeah, it's a distinct smell. You could buy those ozone.
Like rotten eggs?
No, it's not a bad smell. After that, the temperature in the house dropped dramatically, even in summer. We'd walk into the rooms that felt like a freezer. Our breath would fog. We constantly felt watched, and not in a benevolent way. It felt like an oppressive, hateful presence.
What's up, Jeff?
What's up, Jeff? How you doing, brother? We constantly felt watched, and not in a benevolent way. It felt like an oppressive, hateful presence. My husband, a total skeptic, finally admitted he was terrified when he woke up one night to find something breathing heavily just inches from his face. An icy breath that smelt like decay.
Yeah.
He swore he saw 2 pinpricks of red light in the darkness before it vanished. We moved out within weeks. Lost money on the house. She says, but frankly, our sanity and safety were worth a lot more. We later found out from a local historian that a woman had been brutally murdered in that house in the 1920s by her jealous husband, and her body was never found. She says, we believe she never left, and she didn't want us there either. We often wonder if anyone lives in that house now and what they might be experiencing. What do you think about that?
That's a good haunting house story.
I would like to go there and do an investigation, Jason.
So the lady,
what do you think?
Yeah, a lady died there in the 20s.
Yeah.
Or got murdered there by her jealous husband.
And they never found the body. She may be in a wall.
Her body was never found. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
She may be in a wall. What do you think? I think we should all go and do a ghost hunt there.
Yeah, it's just West Tennessee. Probably what?
Depends on how far west, but it's
close to Memphis. It's got to be.
It's Memphis. It's 5.5 hours away to Memphis.
Yeah. So this next story is from Ethan, and this is a good story too.
Yeah.
I think it's a good Bigfoot story.
Yeah.
Because it does a lot of things a Bigfoot has been known to do.
Yeah.
So it says, hey guys, I'm Ethan, and this happened to me and my buddies during a backpacking trip in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park near the Tennessee-North Carolina border. Now that is close.
Yeah. we're not far from there.
About 3 years ago, we're experienced hikers, always stick to the trails, and we respect nature. So we were camped pretty deep in, miles from any roads. It was a clear moonlit night, and we were sitting around, a sadly dimming fire. It says we were just talking, and suddenly we heard it. It sounded like a woman screaming, a high pitched and full of terror coming from, the woods. So our first thought was someone's in trouble, but then the scream changed. It morphed into the sound of a baby crying. Then a child laughing. This may not be the story I was thinking about.
Right.
May not be a Sasquatch. I was thinking of another story that we're going to be doing. So then a child laughing, then a dog whimpering. It wasn't distinct individual sounds. It was like they were blending and shifting one into the other, mimicking sounds, that we would all recognize, but with an underlying unnatural quality. So we huddled closer. One of my friends, Mark, whispered, "What the hell is that?" The sound kept coming and circling our camp. Always it was out of sight in the forest. It would mimic our voices sometimes too, repeating snippets of our conversations back to us.
Uh-oh.
But a little distorted. Like a warped tape recording.
It's
Spearfinger.
I was thinking of something else.
What?
Comes from outer space and it hunts men.
Predator?
Predator. That's what he does. And he plays it back.
He says it felt like something was playing with us, trying to lure us out into the woods. So then we heard a sound that chilled us to the bone. It was the sound of my girlfriend's voice. My girlfriend now is 100 miles away calling my name. It was perfectly clear, perfectly her, but with, that same inhuman resonance. So we immediately threw more wood on the fire, trying to make it bigger. And the sounds continued for another hour or so, never coming too close, never revealing itself, just constantly mimicking and surrounding us. So we all felt this overwhelming sense of dread, like something, was observing us and testing us.
Just come out into the woods.
So guess what we did? We packed up at first light, breaking camp faster than I've ever seen. We hiked out in silence, checking over our shoulders constantly. We've talked about it since, but none of us have an explanation. We don't think it was an animal. It wasn't human. It felt like something specifically wanted to mess with our minds. And to this day, I can't hear a sound in the woods without wondering if it's truly what it is. It left a mark on him, didn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy though. That's just absolutely nuts. I couldn't even begin to think of what that would be, because parts of it I could say would possibly be Bigfoot, because sometimes they do mimic birds and some other animals that they're thought of to mimic. I won't say it like it's known, but what they think that they mimic. But at the same time, I don't know.
Might have been spear fingers, what I was thinking.
Spear finger. Oh, I mean, yeah. You've got a lot
shape shifting skinwalker.
You got some pretty mean things that are up in those mountains that the Cherokee talked about for a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's crazy. So this next one comes from a listener about a small rural town in Kentucky.
Now, well, when you get done, I'll say something.
Go ahead.
No, I'll wait till you get done. Don't want to mess it up for you. For them.
For them, for the listener.
For the listeners. For all two of them.
That's all right. So he writes in, my name is Kevin, and this happened to me about 15 years ago. When I was a teenager, I grew up on a farm outside of a small rural town in Kentucky. Now, our land was mostly fields and woods, and we were miles from any major light pollution. So one summer night, I snuck out of the house around midnight to go meet some friends. So I was walking across one of our large hayfields. The stars were absolutely brilliant above me. I remember looking up and thinking how clear the Milky Way was. Then a light appeared in the sky. It wasn't a plane and it wasn't a star. It was a dull orange glow, maybe about half a mile away. It hovered silently over the far end of our field, right above the tree line. Now it was perfectly still. There was no blinking, no sound. Now, as I watched, and the light began to descend slowly and steadily until it was just above the tops of the trees. Then it started to change. The orange glow intensified and the shape, which I hadn't been able to discern before, became clear. It was a massive, perfectly round disc, maybe 100 feet across, completely silent and surrounded in this soft, pulsating orange light. Then a single, incredibly bright white beam shot down from the center of this disc, illuminating a perfect circle on the ground in the field. It was so intense it looked like daylight in that spot. And then something started to happen in that light beam. Now, it's hard to describe, but what it looked like was kind of a distortion, like the air itself was rippling and stretching. And then something started to form within the beam, right there on the ground. It kind of looked like shapes, tall and slender, but they were blurry, indistinct, like looking through heat haze. There were maybe 3 or 4 of them. Now, I was absolutely frozen, terrified, hiding behind a large hay bale. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The figures seemed to be doing something, moving around in the light, but I couldn't make out any details. They were just there. And the silence was absolute, despite this massive object hovering above. Now, after about 5 minutes, the shape slowly dissipated, melting back into the distortion. Then the bright white beam retracted back into the disc. The orange glow of the disc itself began to dim very slowly until it was just a faint flicker. Then, just simply vanished. It didn't fly away. It didn't zoom off. One second it was there. The next it wasn't. Like someone had turned off a light switch. I ran home, burst through the door, and didn't tell my parents until years later. They just laughed and said it was a drone or a plane. But I know what I saw, and I know the absolute silence, the perfectly round light, and those strange shifting figures in the beam were not from this world. I've never looked at the night sky the same again.
So is that a close encounters of the third
time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Woo Riders, how you doing?
Hello. God bless you too. So if you're just joining us, we're
doing some
listener encounters.
Yeah. Some
emails that we've collected, and
if you look at the bottom of the page there, it'll tell you if you have any if you have any stories you want to tell or send to us, you can do it at that email address, info@paranormal411.org. Yeah, that was definitely a crazy one.
Yeah.
I didn't read that one last night when I was reading through all the other ones. I think I skimmed through it, but I don't think I really read it, you know.
Yeah. So this next one happened on Fort Loudon Lake.
Whoa. That might be a little close.
Yeah, it says my family, it's Jessica, and she says my family has a house near the lake, and I've spent a lot of summers there. I know that lake like the back of my hand. So last July, I decided to go for a late night paddleboard. Paddleboarding's in, ain't it? It was beautiful, calm night. Moon was out, and the water, it was perfect like glass. I paddled out to a quiet cove that's, pretty secluded, and it's always given me a bit of an eerie vibe. But I usually just brush it off. So I was just floating, enjoying the quiet when I started to hear it. At first, it was faint, like a distant breeze rustling through the leaves, but there was no breeze. Then it got closer, and it sounded like whispers. But there wasn't any words I could understand, just a low murmur, as if it was a dozen voices were talking just out of earshot. It seemed to be coming from the direction of the lake bank. So I felt a sudden chill despite the warm night air, and the whispers got louder, and I swear I could almost make out individual words. Though they were garbled and indistinct, it felt like they were talking about me.
That would be weird.
So then the water around my paddleboard started rippling. It wasn't a fish. It says it wasn't a fish. It was an unsettling disturbance, and I felt a cold touch to my ankle.
Uh-oh.
Ugh, I've been a snake. She said, like a hand briefly brushing against my ankle under the water. So I yelled and nearly fell off the board. I scrambled to my feet on the board. My heart was pounding, and these whispers, kept intensifying. And then I saw a dark shape just beneath the surface.
Dun-dun,
Hmm.
dun-dun,
Dun-dun.
dun-dun, 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 dun-dun.
Saw a dark shape just beneath the surface moving towards me. It was long and shadowy, almost like the current, but it moved with a purpose. So I didn't wait around. I paddled back to shore faster than I've ever paddled in my life. Never looked back. And when I got to the house, I was shaking. And my grandmother said that a lot of people say the water takes things and keeps them talking.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't know what it was, but I've never gone paddleboarding alone in that lake at night again. So
That's crazy.
So that happened on Fort Loudon Lake.
Christina says we should go there.
There's a graveyard on that lake. Yeah. My father is buried in the graveyard.
So it's a rainy evening in Northeast Florida. It's been really rainy here lately too.
Oh yeah.
Hey Shell, you're on Rumble.
Rumble.
Get ready to rumble.
Let's see how many more we got.
I think we've only got like
2 more.
the one I'm about to read, then one more for you.
Yeah.
Man, I think this might be a short show tonight.
Maybe. This is the one I thought was Bigfoot.
Yeah, I don't know because
this happened in Loudon too, or right outside of Loudon.
Yeah, Highway 70. The problem is that
it making a honking noise.
And it keeping up with the car.
Yeah, well, maybe it wasn't driving too fast.
in the woods. I don't know what would do that. Um, that's kind of a weird. It's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
Says, hi, my name is Ben. This happened to me about 2 years ago while I was driving home late one night on a stretch of Highway 70, just outside of Loudon, heading towards Knoxville. It was past midnight. There were no other cars on the road, just me and the dark. I was driving past a particularly wooded area, and I had my windows down because it was a mild night. Suddenly, I heard a sound from the woods to my right. Now, it sounded exactly like my car horn, which was a quick, sharp honk, which is weird. That's just weird to me. I frowned, thinking maybe a tree had fallen on a power line or something, or it would be some weird echo or something. But then it did it again. Honk, honk. Perfectly mimicking my horn.
Do that again.
Honk, honk. Hold on. I'm sure it's going to be on here again. But coming from the deep in the forest, moving parallel to my car. So I sped up a bit, feeling kind of a strange unease. Now, this was no echo. It was too precise. Then the sounds started to change. It would mimic other car noises, the screech of tires, the grinding of gears, always following me through the trees. It was trying to keep up in its car and it kept grinding gears.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
It's weird. Yeah. Let's see. It was like something was learning or playing with the sounds of my vehicle. Then it did something that made my blood run cold. Now I have a custom exhaust on my truck, and it makes very distinctive low rumble when I accelerate. As I tried to outrun whatever it was, I heard that exact rumble just a few yards into the woods, keeping pace with me. It was too accurate to be a coincidence. So I decided to slam on the gas, going way too fast for that road. The mimicking stopped abruptly for a few seconds. There was absolute silence. Then a horrifying guttural shriek tore through the night. It sounded like a human scream, but it was distorted. It was filled with a rage that made every hair on my body stand on end. It was a sound of something furious that I had gotten away. So it didn't want him to get away. The wife and I watched a movie not too long ago. Anyway, it says, I didn't look back until I was practically in Knoxville. Didn't know what was in those woods that night, but it wasn't an animal I'd ever heard of. It was intelligent. It was a mimic, and it wanted something. I still get nervous driving that stretch of road after dark, and I always keep my windows up. Michelle and I watched a movie. I forgot the name of it, but it's where these people get stuck in the woods in this shelter, and they can only go out in the daytime. They cannot go out at night. Come to find out, the woods were full of the Fae, but they were wanting them in there so they could mimic them, so they could try to become human. But if you tried to leave, they'd kill you if you was out at nighttime. And so, maybe it's a Fae.
Maybe. Now, back in my Project Blue Book days, I would, I investigated stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I would give a perfectly scientific explanation.
Yeah. What would you say?
The echo of the car against maybe the trees and the hill, when you go across a bridge,
you can hear
you can hear it. You can hear your car. I don't know. I'm just being funny.
I agree. It may be.
Maybe, but it may be something else.
It's swamp gas.
Yeah. What did you think about that one? I liked it.
Oh, I liked it. I think it was a good story.
I've just never heard of anything keeping up with a car, like you said.
Keeping up with the car, even when he accelerated, and making car noises like, "Boop, boop." I'm sorry, but that's weird. And it sounds like a 3-year-old. You know, I don't know. That part's weird for me.
Yeah.
But the guttural growl and howl, I mean, I see why you said that you thought maybe it was because that part of it definitely seems more
Yeah.
like it could be a Bigfoot for sure.
So we have one more for you guys. So this comes from Daniel. So my name is Daniel, and this happened to me when I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky back in 2008. But the incident actually occurred in Tennessee, where I was visiting my family on leave. My cousin Sarah and I had decided to go camping on some private land owned by her uncle. And we set up our tent in a clearing, and it was a clear, calm night, and we had a small campfire going. And around 1 a.m., we were just about to head into the tent when the entire clearing suddenly lit up. It wasn't a sudden flash. It was gradual, a white light like a stadium floodlight. But it was coming from directly above us. We looked up, and hovering above us, maybe 100 feet in the trees, was a massive, perfectly black object. It was a V-shaped, almost like a boomerang.
That would be crazy.
Easily the size of a football field.
That would really be crazy. Something that big
At 100 feet, yeah.
Yeah. I'd be like,
Ooh.
oh no.
It had,
I'd really be thinking,
yeah,
we're about to get abducted.
yeah. So it had no visible lights, no seams, no discernible features except for the pure white light coming from its underside. So we couldn't hear no crickets, no wind, no nothing. It was just quietness. And the light, they said they could feel the light, physically feel it.
Michelle says that was the name of the movie, The Watchers.
The Watchers.
It was pretty good.
So we were both just standing there, staring up. Then the object started to descend very slowly, still silent, right into the clearing. We could feel the ground faintly vibrating under our feet as it got closer. The light was so bright it was almost painful to look at, but we couldn't tear our eyes away from it. They thought it was going to land right on top of the tent.
Wow.
But just as it seemed it would touch down maybe 20 feet above the ground, the light flickered and went away, and the V-shaped object was instantly gone.
That's weird.
One moment it was there, and the next it was absolute darkness, and the crickets came back as if nothing ever happened.
I bet you that white light that they couldn't tear their eyes away from, that was on the slab getting messed with.
I bet they had some
missing time,
yep. And they're going to need some regressive therapy.
Yes. Jason, you'll be able to do that at some point, won't you?
I think maybe.
Hypnotist.
Oh yeah. So we grabbed our gear, threw it into the car, and drove back to our uncle's house. We left the tent there, and we thought that no one would ever believe us, so we kept quiet, especially me being in the military at the time. So there you go.
That's crazy. I don't know what I would do for something that close like that.
Right.
That would be, like you said, it would be crazy. I'd be like, holy smokes. Yeah.
Yeah, wish I could have an experience like that. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Have you heard
I
about?
do Dogman, Bigfoot,
You don't want to do aliens?
aliens. I don't know, man. Hey, Mike, how you doing, buddy? Aliens, they seem to be able to like woo you
Mess with your brain.
and just pull you in and do all kinds of crazy stuff to you, you know? Bigfoot's either going to kill you or just throw things at you. Dogman's going to do the same thing. At least you know
Yeah.
what you get.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I would rather deal with about anything else other than aliens.
Reptilians.
Yeah, they'd eat you too.
They're the mean ones.
They'd eat you. That liver with 5 beans.
So you can see at the bottom of the screen, it says like, share, and subscribe to the
Please.
YouTube channel, please.
We've got now this Saturday we'll be doing a show, but next Saturday we have a guest.
Yes.
Micah Dank will be on, and he will be talking to us about the Bible and esoteric stuff, right? It'd be there's esoteric stuff on the Bible and stuff like that.
He says he's got a whole presentation. What is it, 80 minutes?
Yeah.
So we get to see that.
It'll be good.
I think it'll be fun.
Yep, it's gonna be fun. Then we've got who the week after, do you remember?
Let's see. Don't remember.
Hold on a second. I'll help you with that because I'll just pull up the calendar. So we've got Micah Dank. Then we've got Alina on the 14th.
Elena,
whatever.
Yeah.
Then Paranormal Paul on the 21st. We don't have anything on the 28th yet. Then the 5th, we're going to be on Paranormal Paul's show. And then the 12th, we're going to have Artemis on.
Artemis.
Then the 19th, Greg Ogle. That one is going to be a great one too.
Yeah.
I really look forward to that one. Then the 26th, we will not have a show because the 26th will be at the Bigfoot Conference. So definitely come and check us out if you're going to be at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference this year.
It's in Gatlinburg.
Yes, on the 26th of July. Then on the 2nd of August, we've got Harley Owens, another great one.
Yeah, we need to get you all back on.
Hey, anytime you guys want to come back on, y'all let us know and we'll schedule it for 100% sure. We'll schedule it. The 9th of August, we've got Chris and Chrissy.
Chris and Chrissy Dunham.
Yeah. The 23rd, we've got Fisher of Spam coming on.
James Powell.
Then on the 30th, we got John Russell. World-renowned psychic. And he's got a new book out. So, yes, that'll be great. And then the next one after that will be the 13th of September. We have Lori Wade coming on.
Lori Copeland Wade. Going to talk to us about some Bigfoot.
Then the 11th of October, we've got the Knoxville Library. We're going to be doing another talk.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely don't miss any of that. And we're going to let everybody know every week when we talk to you about all these things coming up. But you could always check them out on our Facebook page. Right, Jason?
Yes.
So
they're always up there on the Facebook page.
Yeah. And not all of it is though, because like our stuff that we're not doing,
all the shows are.
Yeah, all the shows are, but stuff like the Bigfoot Conference and things like that are not. We need to put those on the website, maybe.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. But hey, Mike, definitely y'all get a hold of us and we'll definitely do another show.
All right.
Everybody have a good night. We will see you on Saturday for another great show. And remember, you can find us at paranormal411.org, Paranormal 411 on Facebook, YouTube, X, and Rumble. Tune in live every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time and Saturdays from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Remember, Saturday night at 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. If you're in the metro Atlanta area, you catch us at WDJY-FM. That's 99.1 FM. Now, for listeners outside of Atlanta, you can visit us at WDJYFM.com, or you click the link on our website. Remember, we're also on Subspace Radio on all major podcast platforms. We have a book out, East Tennessee Hauntings and Lore Edition 2. That's East Tennessee Hauntings and Lore Edition 2. It is available on Amazon or at paranormal411.org. Join us.
Join us. We'll see you guys Saturday.
Yes. Be safe.
Have you ever wondered what lurks in the shadows? What secrets the night hides? What strange phenomena might be happening just beyond your perception? Join us as we journey into the world of the paranormal, exploring everything from ghosts and UFOs to cryptids and unexplained occurrences. From haunted houses to all things paranormal, join us in the search for the truth behind the veil. Welcome to Paranormal 411.